Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Tria. Today, I will act as an immature adjudicator to overview the debate exhibition in NUDC 2019 in Area 5. If you are interested to watch the debate match before I give my verbal adjudication, feel free to open up the link in the description box below. So, without further ado, let's start. Thank you so much for this debate exhibition today. It is very amazing, and I do believe also all of you have did a very good job on your own, and also team performances. So right now we are come to our next session, which is debate adjudications. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tria. I'm your panel in this debate in this chamber, and I'm going to talk about my verbal adjudication in 3 points. The first point is about the debate overview and also the motion overview. The second was about my decisions on the final rank of this exhibition, and the last one will be my consideration why I decide like that. So without further ado, let me start from the very first thing, which is the debate and also the motion overview. We are debating under the motion of this house would give this house would not allow the rich to deduct their tax for charity purposes. Under this motion, I do believe that all of us have known about the whole definition about this motion in the very first layer. All of us have already understand about that. But if we are dig deeper more into the core of the motion, I do believe it also related into the burden of both of the team have put under their shoulder, whether it's affirmative or also the opposition side of this house. This burden of also the core of the motion will I do believe in here started from the very first thing, which is the status quo analysis on the very basic about the philosophical approach about these motions. I do believe in here that affirmative and also the opposition need to answer why is it justified in the analysis of the status quo, why is it justified for the affirmative team to re-evaluating the regulation that exists within our status quo today, and why the opposition side of this house need to stay in a status quo right now. And the second, when it come into term with this the practical approach about this motion, I do believe in here that the burden of proof, you need to answer three point, which is the first thing is about the exclusivity of your own side, which is either exclusivity on fully tax only, or if you divide it into the tax deduction also. And the second one is about the comparative calculations about which side is be more beneficial and which side is be more beneficial, and also the opposite of that. And the third one is about the implications, the further implication about this motion, about how you see the ideal scenario of this motion happening in the future, and also about the worst case scenario that might be happen if you are supporting and also if you are opposing these motions. So we begin based on that consideration, based on this core of the motion and also the burden of proof. I give the rank of the debate exhibition into four category, into four rank. I give the fourth rank into the opening government, and third rank goes into the closing oppositions. The second rank goes to the closing government, and the winner is the opening oppositions. Congratulations. So my decision is based on this considerations, and I will give it from the opening government first. Why I put opening government as the fourth position? Here is my considerations. I do believe that you guys have already did a very good job on setting up our debate very nicely. You are trying to re-evaluating the regulations based on this analysis status quo that you believe it will be harming our nation, it will be harming towards the society. But then it's very lack of the evidence, and it's very lack of the actual urgency. Why is it a very needed? So your philosophical background, your analysis status quo is easily broken down by your oppositions. And that's the things that make your foundation is kind of shaky from the very first place. Coming to the more practicality approach, which is your argumentations, I do believe in here that your argumentation about the reducing the income, it potentially could be a strong argument, but then because like it's lack of evidence of that, your reducing this income argument is easily beaten up by the opening opposition and also your closing government. Why I say like that? Because when you are trying to defining and also to argue about this reducing income, your lack of the calculation risk, your lack of the evidence. I do believe in here, if you want to make it more stronger, I will suggest you to make more calculation risk, like what the opening opposition and closing government do to make it more believable for us as the adjudicators and also the audience, as a listener itself. And then after that, when you are trying to defining the exclusivity of the text, I know is it good idea when you are trying to give the thought about this management, the role of the management under the government hand, because you know it's very good for the government to manage the tax fully. But then there's also lack of the time calculation of the management to convincing us as the adjudicators, because basically the another opponent also bring this kind of like management, and they give it more convincingly because they back it off by some evidence. So I strongly suggest all of you to define your own argument by some strong or logical explanation, or at least you backing it up with the data or some evidence to make it more believable. But then I also try to see the way you giving off your prediction on how is the your prediction based on some kind of like assumptions that those intention behind those charity is not noble, is not angelic or some things like that. Is it very good if you are give more logical explanation behind that? But then because you didn't give it up, you couldn't overcome your own closing oppositions, because at the end of the very day they're restating their stance, and they say that no matter what is the intention of those rich people, as long as they give the charity as benefit for the society, then we don't care about the intention. It's very good the way they convince us that as long as it benefit for both party, then it's okay. So this your potential strong argument also beaten able by the argument coming from the closing opposition itself. So that's why you couldn't overcome and become the third rank. And then we are moving into the closing government. Closing opposition. Why I put closing opposition as the third rank? So my reason is more likely in the idea that I do believe that, and here the closing opposition as the last team that fighting in this war, they trying to combining with some strategy, combining the philosophical and so the practical approach of this motion and convincing us why is charity is matter, why is charity is effective. But then when we are trying to move it into the more structural level, they also give us some comparative calculation in line. Comparative calculation also is very good, but then it's sadly, unfortunately, still in line with your own opening benches. So I give credit towards them more than towards your own theme, because it's still in line, it's similar from them. So I will strongly suggest the closing benches to make your own horizon, your own extension that differ you off from your own opening, so no credit goes to them. But then I also appreciate the good things, that the good argument, the praise idea that coming from you as a theme, when you are trying to give us the new possibility of corruption that possibly also happen in fact in the tax budget itself. The way you attacking that towards the opponent cases that they want it only on the fully budget itself. But then it's also kind of backstabbing your own argument, because at the end of the very day, you're not only asking for you're not only allowing for some charity, but also the tax regulation itself. So at the end of the very day, it's kind of danger of your own argument, right? So I do believe in here you need to try to be more beware of that, because it could also potentially backstabbing your own argument. It's very sad for that to happen. Beside that, I also love the way you are stating your own parameter of the charity. You believe in here that no matter what the other opponent, other themes state, that you believe charity is good as long as those charity could beneficial for the society and could also beneficial for the giver, or for the giver, which is the company, because it gives them brand image or something like that, and you don't care about the intentions behind it as long as they give it and it beneficial. I do believe it is like one of your strongest argument, because you're restating your parameter on how you are perceiving this kind of the charity, and it's very good. But then suddenly those arguments couldn't overcome your own closing bench, your closing mate, which is the closing government. So that's why I put the closing opposition still in the third rank. And why I put the closing government as the second rank is because of some considerations. I do believe in here that seems like the closing oppositions, closing government is succeed to bring up new attack expansion towards the debate today. You giving up some background evaluating on on the urgency why that you believe we need to re-evaluate the status quo right now regarding the charity. You give us the cases of like Mark Zuckerberg in the Africa cases. It's very good on the level of the philosophical analysis, because it gives you stronger foundations to build up your practical. So when you build up your practical, you are explaining it to us about your practicality side of your argument. It's more convincing in the idea of the exclusivity of taxes. You are putting yourself under the idea of contributing, because you believe that in the idea of compensations. The idea of the compensation, you do believe in here that it's within the right of the company to compensate of what they have dig from our natural resources, or from our resources itself. But then this idea of the compensation, this could be very potentially your stronger argumentations is very late to be bring in the with rather than your own members. So maybe I do believe that it will be more stronger and will be counted and contribute more on our debate if you bring it more sooner rather than very last like that. But then you can also overcome your own first rank, your closing club oppositions, because this idea of the compensation is still in line into their argument, which is the idea of the contribution. Because at the end of the very day, this compensation also could be counted as their contribution towards the nation, right? So that's why I get the winning point towards the opening oppositions. So why opening opposition win? Why they could stand off stronger among other themes, over other performances, is because they give us more structure, because they give more structural argument and stay in line with touching the core of our motion today. First thing first, they give us the philosophical background. When they are giving us the philosophical background, they're trying to give implicitly show the urgency with the cases of the tax exemption on the church itself. And then after that, coming into more practicality side, they believe in the idea of the advantage of this regulation, in the idea of concept of reward, in the exclusivity of the charity itself. That's very good, because this concept of reward is called and be beaten up by other teams, because all of them I also believe that is like some kind of like contribution coming from the company towards the society. So all of them could be said that they are agree with your argument, and that's make your argument stronger until the end, and it still stand until the end of our debate exhibitions. And then after that, you also give us more on the comparative calculations between these two sides, the charity and also charity divided and also the fully taxed itself. You give us more the comparative on more variety value, based on the time calculation, based on the effort, based on the type, also the form of that material, and also about the reasons. This comparative is more likely to convince the adjudicators, the audience, the listener, to count that, oh yes, that's true, and that's also the strong point of your own cases. And the last one is also, I would like to appreciate your your attempt on giving us the further implication in the matter of the Ross cast calculations. a worst case calculation about what will happen if we are just giving them fully taxes or some things like that. It's actually very good play between you, the opening opposition, also the closing government, on the way you playing of those worst case scenario. But then I do believe in here that you still need to maintain some your philosophical foundation is still not very strongly built up. So I do suggest you to make this more constructively built this up first, because it's like your foundations, and if you have built it stronger, then your own practicality side or your own argument based on that will be more elaborately easy to understand, elaborately easy to be accepted by the audience. So that's all for me. This is my considerations. So we may go now into the debate chamber before we begin the real war, which is the NUDC competitions. I wish all of you good luck on your own real performance after this. And then, if you are curious about your personal or themes performances of this debate exhibition, you may approach me in the debate chamber. So you may go now. Thank you very much. So that's all for me. Thank you very much for your attention, and please be remembered that this is only the examples of how the debate adjudication looks like in the real life. So any mistake that I have made within this video, I apologize. And once again, thank you very much for your attention, and see you on another occasion. Bye.